Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 2, Episode 6, Trapped Inside. This is a cool little claustrophobic sort of episode where the setting is basically, it's just the house. It's a lot like the last episode. It's one location, a bit more variety to it compared to the police station, but I really enjoyed this one. We got some cool stuff with, I think all the characters actually had some pretty good moments, at least all the main characters. I think the supporting cast, they admittedly didn't really have much except for Chet, who sadly died in this episode. I was not expecting that. I was like, oh man, I thought, he could just live, because of course at some point they're going to leave the town. But he ends up getting killed by Cheryl, which I thought it was cool to see her come back. I assumed that that was the same actress. I didn't bother looking it up because I'm like, unless she passed away and I didn't know that, that's the same actress. So I didn't even bother actually looking that up because I'm like, it's going to be the same person if they brought her back, unless she passed away. But I love what they did with that. Chet's introduction was hilarious because he was jerking off to Cheryl's clothes, which is just ridiculous and silly. And then Cheryl comes back through a really great sequence with the blood. I love the sequence where they have the blood come out of the picture. I was like, that's actually pretty amazing. I thought that was just really cool. It's a nice little trick to like kind of cut little slits and it still looks like a flat picture. But obviously it has, little holes in it, and that's where the blood comes out. And I was like, that's actually amazing. I just loved how that looked. I was like, that was actually pretty phenomenal. So she comes back. Of course, we get both the human-looking version, and then, of course, the natural Deadite version. And I like what they did with that. She was kind of stalking Ash all over the house, and it was crazy. He had to track her down, and then that led to more crazy scenes with Chet. And then the way they did it where she was like in the wall and she grabbed him, I thought that was really cool. Like I like the way that little fight scene played out and he had to like rip her out of the wall in order to keep fighting her. I thought it was really cool. So I enjoyed that fight scene. We had, of course, the stuff with Kelly in the beginning of the episode. She's with Ash's crush. I really can't think of her name. And basically, she was just swearing the whole episode. That was like the whole first half when she's like shooting at people. It was just her swearing the whole time. So I thought that was funny. And she's just like shooting at the crowd and everything because the sheriff brought the whole town. Well, admittedly, Ash killed that lady's daughter and she didn't understand what was happening. And she's dead now anyway because Ball took over her body. So, they have the whole town aiming at the house and everything. And she's just like spraying and trying to distract everybody and keep them from shooting up the house. So it's just really funny. Like I loved what they had her do in the beginning, and then she tries to convince Pablo like, hey, you can do this. Like it's gonna be totally fine. And he goes through the crazy, painful process of having the book basically resurface from within his body. And so of course the problem is if it continues to happen, there will be no Pablo. It'll be all living Necronomicon. Zero of that is gonna have Pablo in there. So I like the way they did that, and of course I'm sure he'll be fine, and it might be a little iffy at, in the next episode or something, but I'm sure it'll all work out just fine. And then, Ruby just doing what she can to try to get him through it, like, alright, I need you to focus on this, just deal with the pain pretty much. They had, like, that crazy moment at the end when the spell came up and, like, it blew everybody away. I certainly wasn't expecting that to happen, so we'll see how things play out because Ball also recognized like they have the book, but it's because it's within, in a sense, it's within Pablo, and it has the exact same essence. It wasn't like it seems like they have the book or it's like the book, but something's different. It was just like they have the book, so it's truly taking over Pablo at this point, which sucks for him, but I am excited to see where they take it. It should be pretty interesting to see them do sort of a out-of-control Dark Pablo, which I'm sure is at least somewhat what they're going to do before everything's said and done. But I like what they did with this one. I thought it was pretty good. Action was good. The comedy was definitely in there, especially the ending when Ash proved it to everyone what was happening. And in real life, they would have shot him. I mean, they're all holding guns and stuff, and he's just like, hold on, hold on. He said that like 5 times before Cheryl finally got up. So everyone's freaking out and stuff, and I loved how they ended it when Ash was chopping her head off. And they have just the random dude, and at first he's cutting, and it's like, oh, it's a little blood splatter, and he's just like, he's stunned, and I was like, that's really funny. And then it was just like, typical, Evil Dead, just blood splatter. He was just drenched in it, and I just thought that was so funny for some reason because everyone is just like insanely shocked and stuff, and just the way it all played out, I thought was so freaking funny. I was just like, man, the way they did that, I loved it because he was like the little bit of blood. He's just like, whoa, like I didn't see that coming, and then of course he's drenched like they do in every episode. So I like the way they did that. Sadly, Ash had to kill his sister again, but it's so silly. He was like, meh, sorry, gotta do it twice. So I like the way they kind of went through everything, and now we have Ball still as our villain, Pablo, iffy, but most likely as a main character he'll be fine. And then we of course have Pablo versus Ball, which I'm actually excited to see that because with how they did the introduction of the spells, showing up on Pablo's body, I would think this won't just be like a spell and then poof, Ball is gone. It seems like they might actually have to do something physical, or there will at least be some sort of physical reaction from Ball based on how powerful the spell seemed, simply from spawning, in word form, So I'm excited to see where they take it. I think this is a fun episode. Interesting how they did sort of the claustrophobic element 2 episodes in a row. The police station was definitely more claustrophobic because once they got out of the prison cells, they didn't go back to that until like the very end of the episode. So they only had like the main area where everyone was at, and then the room where Ball and Ruby were. And this one, that they went all over the house. So it wasn't nearly as claustrophobic, and technically they did, of course, go outside at the end. So it wasn't nearly as claustrophobic, but it was that sort of one setting type of thing. They just have more to utilize, I guess, as far as the one setting, because they were going all over the house, which was also cool to see, simply because it's Ash's house, and really there's not much history there, so we get to see some extra stuff. We actually did get to see Cheryl's room in this episode, which they didn't show before. So I like that. I like what they did with that. As always, a gory, crazy episode. Like, they saved it all right for the end too. It was like, because the rest of it was like, oh, they're just kind of shooting and it's crazy and stuff, but it's not insane or anything like that. We had a little, the blood out of the picture. That's not really gory. It's just like a pool of blood reached the clothes. And then we had the ending, and he has to chop her head off, and it's, what we probably have come to expect at this point. But love the episode. Would love to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I believe I asked this before, but I gotta ask it again. How do you guys think they're gonna end Ball? I mean, the way that they have it now, is Pablo gonna become the next villain? Like, is he gonna end up defeating Ball, and then the Necronomicon takes over him? Is that gonna be the rest of the season where Pablo's actually the villain, or maybe not necessarily the villain, but he's just, he's controlled by the Necronomicon, so he doesn't want to be human anymore, or I guess it would actually be the book doesn't want him to be human anymore. So I want to know your predictions for how that's going to play out. Is it all going to be, two birds, one stone type of thing, like he defeats Ball and then they save him in the same episode, or is he going to defeat Ball and then the Necronomicon, at least temporarily, because of course they'll save him at some point, the Necronomicon will be either separated or completely vanquished, and that's how they'll get Pablo back. So I want to know your theories on how that's going to play out, and of course what you thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.